a friend of mine who worked for Blizzard at the time had said, like, thank God you got to this BlizzCon because it's the one you don't want to miss. Mm-hmm. So I knew something big was going to come out. And then, Chris Metzen came out on the stage and he said, it's been 16 years since we've introduced a new universe, a new IP. Mm-hmm. It's time. Here's Overwatch. And he showed it. And I was just in awe. I was like, this is amazing. Like, what, I don't know what the hell's going on. This is a crazy cinematic. There's some kids in a museum and a monkey and all this stuff.
Hey everyone, my name is Akinola, and welcome to another episode of The Feed, powered by Xfinity. Today we're interviewing Overwatch league caster Achilios. As you probably already know, the Fusion played admirably in Week 3, but the Shanghai Dragons had a hard-fought victory, playing out 6 maps and getting a 3-2 victory over the Fusion. Now, before you start spouting doom and gloom, it's still incredibly early in the season, and losses like these are great opportunities to see where our weaknesses lie and how we can do better for next time. We got a hell of a series either way, and I know the Fusion are going to come back stronger after the conclusion of the May Melee tournament. Now, the next scheduled match for the Fusion will be Saturday, May 22nd against the Excelsior, and then on May 23rd against the Hunters. So yeah, we've got a little bit of a break to recharge and get some W's on the board. The silver lining of all this, we were able to get some nice plays for that weekend, so now it's time for the recap. Starting off with play number 5, we've got Carpe on Mccree, showing why he's one of the top hit scan DPS players in the game right now. Starting out with a double tap on Iyazaki, weaving in and out of the melee with heavy backup from the other members of the Fusion. Mano and Carpe able to use that card to their advantage, and down goes Lip. From downtown into the dirt goes Fleta. Meanwhile, Fate is trying to escape, but he can't escape his fate as Carpe makes it look too easy. Play number 4 takes us to the POV of Rascal on Tracer. He's decided to take the high road as Hotbutt gets a disgusting Graviton Surge, allowing Rascal the easy double-double. He's biding his time, looking for squishy targets. High Lip, by Lip, gone in the blink of an eye. The ult is fully charged up as he sticks Iyazaki, rewinds out of there, and watches Iyazaki explode from a safe distance. Man, I wish I could play Tracer like that. Moving right along to play number 3, this is why teamwork makes the dream work. Mano flexes his manliness around the payload, and I guess this is the saying, you set him up and I'll knock him down in motion, as we see a 3-man Earth Shatter while Carpe finishes the job. It's like Carpe was waiting on higher ground for years or something. See, this just makes you realize that pro Overwatch is such a different game than competitive. We see Carpe creeping around the corner, being super patient and looking for the right opportunity to flank the Dragons. Carpe being the sacrificial lamb here and is able to take down 2 members of the Dragons. That flank was what the Fusion needed to help push that payload onwards and keep that map going. The number 1 play of the week, again, you get to see Carpe and why you can't let this man play any hero with a long-range shot. Iyazaki, headshot. Void, headshot. Fleta, headshot. Somebody stop this man. It's also Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. This wonderful community of people has made America so great in terms of culture, customs, language, and so much more. America couldn't be what it is today without the contributions and sacrifices of our Asian brothers and sisters. And that makes it hurt even more to see the inequity and rise in injustices faced by those communities. There are so many ways to emphasize and celebrate the wonderful history emblazoned by these individuals. One example you can see without trying too hard is the legacy in the Overwatch League right now. Without the dedicated players, of which half of them are Asian, where would the league be? Week in and week out, we get to see some of the greatest plays this game has to offer. The love displayed from fans in live events and online. I mean, to see such positive representation in gaming as a whole is a wonderful thing. It's easy to not care for something that has no effect on you, but I encourage you to strive for inclusion everywhere in gaming and beyond, as a rising tide raises all ships. With all that being said, let's talk to Overwatch League shoutcaster Achilios. Hey everyone, Akinola here. I'm going to be here each week bringing you the Fusion content that you need all season long. And making today possible, this podcast series is powered by Xfinity. Get a fast and reliable connection from Xfinity, the only network with gig speed Wi-Fi and the preferred provider of the Philadelphia Fusion. Welcome to the interview section of the feed powered by Xfinity. On today's show, our guest is Achilios. Goes by Seth for all you regular people, but this guy has been in esports for a really long time. I've known him. I think my first memory of him is, I don't know if you remember this, I think it was an Acer party that we went to. Yeah. Well, I think that was the first time we met each other. That was a wild time. It
was a long ass time ago at this point, man. I mean, what was it, like 20 2012 or 2013.
2012 or 2013, yeah. It
it's
seems
been
like
a
an
long time.
eternity.
It really does. That was before I was even really involved in esports. Yeah.
Yeah, and now you're a big time caster. So let's get into the history of how you got to where you are today. So if you want to introduce yourself to everybody, people might know who you are, but for the people who might not know who you are.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am a freelance shoutcaster that goes by Achilios. I primarily work in the Overwatch League as well as Valorant, but I have a history in League of Legends where I previously cast the LCK here in Korea.
Nice. So that's one of the important things I want people to grasp hold of. This man's in Korea, and a lot of prominent esports talent have, sacrificed time, patience, money to go to these other leagues, live in these different countries. For League of Legends, for example, the LPL, some people might be in Europe or a better time zone, but might not straight up move to China. You were like knee deep in the Korean culture. So tell us how you got started with broadcasting. What was that spark that said, hey, I need to get into this?
Oh man. I mean, so I had always had a little bit of an interest in it, just because I had a background in video production, and I studied radio, television, film in college and whatnot when I first started off, because I went to college in 2010. And on my way to PAX East, the first time that I went, I was carpooling with a bunch of friends. They had invited me to go with them and drive up from Jersey to Boston. So got in the car, and I think we had 3 cars between us, 15 people that are going on this trip. And I got situated next to this guy, Andrew, and we started talking, and he's like, oh, what do you do? I said, oh, I'm a student at this college. And he's like, oh yeah, so am I, blah, blah, blah. He's like, but I also am a shoutcaster. And I'm like, oh, that's wild. What game do you do? So this is Zyori. I'm sure a lot of people know him from Dota 2, if not from Heroes of New Earth, where he got his start. So that's when he was casting Heroes of New Earth. And he and I chatted the whole ride up. It was 5.5, 6 hours or something drive from Jersey to Boston. And he said, you have a pretty good voice for broadcasts. Have you ever considered being a caster? And I said, oh, it was always in my head, but it was in my head the same way of oh, maybe I'll be an astronaut. It was just one of those things that kind of said yeah, that would be a cool thing to do, but I never actually really pursued it. This was around the time that Heroes of New Earth was going through a major decline. And League of Legends was very much on the up and up, and we were into the 3rd season and whatnot. And he was interested in potentially getting into League. I was then interested in getting into casting, and we kind of struck up a deal saying hey, I'll teach you about League of Legends, you teach me how to become a caster. So we did that. We did one event together, one day of an event, and then it got canceled. But my first cast ever, I got to cast the classic team Curse. Back in the day, and Carpe, I remember, played, he was the ADC at the time. He played Akali jungle because they were just smurfing on the team that they were playing against. And even though it was a stomp, even though the tournament got canceled, I said, you know what, I really enjoyed that. Andrew moved on to go cast Dota, where his career took off. And I decided to just kind of stick around in League, started doing some online League stuff. There's a bunch of old community run tournaments. Tower Dive TV was the first one that I ever had gotten a gig with. And from there, I just kind of kept going through it because, I really liked it. I loved doing it as a hobby. And that's really at the time all I thought about it as.
So it's Mental Health Awareness Month. I know many of you watching have had to struggle with the weight of this pandemic. Some people have had tremendous hardships. Loved ones you haven't seen in who knows how long, loved ones leaving this world too soon. It's not something you grow up preparing for. So if you've made it this far, we're proud of you and we want you to keep fighting. This is a great chance to check in on the ones closest to you, whether it's a text, phone call, FaceTime, or Discord video chat. We can all do a little bit to spread love and happiness to our fellow humans, because at times, everything that's happening in the world can really bog down on you and affect your mental health in a bad way. We're all in this together, and I hope that episodes like these can be a good thing to look forward to and distract you from everything that's going on in the world. I feel like a lot of people, that's how they get their start. It's never the main thing. And if you're one of the fortunate ones, the really talented ones to make it into a career like you have, then it's the sky is the limit. So, League of Legends, biggest, huge esport, one of the biggest in the world. They seem to have established their caster base. And you have all of these other esports that are coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, we want to be as popular as League is. So Overwatch, Great game. I'm awful at it, but you're really good at talking fast into the mic. What brought you into Overwatch?
Just playing it. I've always been a Blizzard guy when it comes down to games. Like the first PC game that I think I ever played was Diablo 2 at a friend's house. And, I had a really crappy computer and he happened to have a top of the line rig, rich friends, that kind of thing. And I went over to his house. I was playing Diablo 2 and I don't even remember how old I was. I was, not even 10 years old, probably like 7. And I really fell in love with it. And then from there, that led into Warcraft 3, and then eventually into, World of Warcraft, went back, played, Warcraft 1, 2, etc. Just to play all the games, and I just couldn't consume enough.
Right.
So then, I started in casting and whatnot. I was primarily working in League of Legends. I was working for Team Liquid at the time, and I happened to go to BlizzCon when Overwatch was announced. A friend of mine who worked for Blizzard at the time had said, like, thank God you got to this BlizzCon because it's the one you don't want to miss. Mm-hmm. So I knew something big was going to come out. And then, Chris Metzen came out on the stage and he said, it's been 16 years since we've introduced a new universe, a new IP. Mm-hmm. It's time. Here's Overwatch. And he showed it. And I was just in awe. I was like, this is amazing. Like, what, I don't know what the hell's going on. This is a crazy cinematic. There's some kids in a museum and a monkey and all this stuff. Like, what is this game going to look like? And then like, oh yeah, by the way, you can go play it right now. Ooh. And I was just so excited to get my hands on it because I was also there with a press pass, which means that you get to skip the line. So mm-hmm. I immediately went in there and I was just like, hey, yeah, one person to play Overwatch, please. Got sat down. And I think I went back maybe 7 times and just played it over and over and over again because I was like, this is just really fun. It was not, like the closest thing that I had played up until that point was TF2, but This was still a very different feeling because all of the characters had like, they're super well fleshed out personalities and whatnot, even their voice lines, even in that moment when I was at BlizzCon, and it's only gotten deeper since then. So I immediately just fell in love with the game upon playing it. So when I got out to Korea and Overwatch was getting ready to be released, we knew that OGN was planning to do a tournament for it and whatnot, because it's the next big Blizzard game. Of course they want to be involved. So I threw my name in there and I was just like, of course I want to cast this. Monty and Doa, seniority, first grabs. So they did like the primary stuff for Apex seasons 1 and 2. I got to do, I think, a fill-in day during the season 2, and then otherwise did the promotion tournaments alongside Wolf and the other casters. And it just kind of took off from there. I just really loved casting it.
Yeah, and it shows your passion in casting. I mean, you're one of the people that I enjoy watching casting alongside Uber. And it's just watching you along with other esports greats. It inspires me to do well. I've always wanted to cast a game at that level, and I don't feel like I have the voice for or the diction for play-by-play or color casting, especially with a game as rapid as Overwatch.
I mean, Overwatch is definitely a challenging one when it comes down to just the pace of it. I think that it's definitely one of the hardest that you can come at just from a moment-to-moment game. Like, obviously, there are games that have way more depth to them that'll take more research and whatnot to really understand what's going on. Like, Brood War is one of those games. I'd even say, like, Rainbow Six Siege has a ton of depth to it. So, like, I look at that and I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, could I cast Rainbow Six Siege? Yes. Do I want to put in all of that work? Not necessarily.
Right.
But yeah, Overwatch in just moment across moment, it does have a lot going on. There's a lot to keep up with, so it can be very challenging. It's a very daunting task. Like, the first time I ever cast that game was actually alongside Uber. Mm-hmm. He was my color caster, and it was for IEM Gyeonggi out here in Korea in 2016. And I remember doing the first map and I said, oh my God, that was terrible. Mm-hmm. I'm awful at this. After this event, maybe I should just never cast Overwatch again. But it was
that bad?
It was, I felt it was that bad. And I've gone back and I've watched and I think it was still very, very terrible. Obviously it's nowhere close to like where I'm at now. And even now I'm far from perfect, but it was really just the first map. Once you get that first map out of the way, it's like something unlocks in your brain and your third eye opens and you just see everything, and then it becomes way easier. It's such a rough start, but then once you push past that initial barrier, it gets so much easier.
No other professional sport is as dependent on network technology and performance. As official Fusion Overwatch sponsors, CommScope delivers ultra-fast and reliable connectivity, allowing super smooth gameplay for the best talent around the globe. For more, head over to CommScope.com. I have a question about how you approach casting, because Overwatch, I feel like the only slow points is when the match initially starts and everybody's going to the objective, and then it's just all out action until a team wipe or something like that. So if you could go back and tell yourself, with all the knowledge that you've acquired over the years of not just casting Overwatch, but casting a whole bunch of other games that require all of this technical knowledge and knowledge of maps and things like that, what would you tell yourself to give you a better sense of security, saying, hey, it's going to be okay if you do X, Y, and Z?
I think I would tell myself that it's totally fine to make mistakes. Because, when I started with the LCK, when I started with Overwatch, I was trying to be a perfectionist and I was trying to get every moment. And I think by forcibly trying to do that, I was overthinking it, and it made me miss more moments, and it made me stumble more than if I was just being relaxed and presenting a good product. The main thing that you're supposed to do is be entertaining and kind of, and guide people through the action. Obviously, the game knowledge is still super important. Knowing what you're talking about is very important. But having good presentation and flow and charisma are incredibly valuable traits to have. So I think I would tell myself to just relax. It's gonna be fine. You don't have to treat this like you're sitting at a desk for a 9-to-5 job or whatever, where you have to be super professional, or like a newsreader, that kind of thing. Have fun with it, and you'll catch everything if you just let loose a little bit. When you're tensed up, it's when things really start going wrong.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the transition. You're from being an expat to being in Korea full time now. Now, just like me, East Coast based. When you were like, I got to go to Korea to establish that next part of my life and not look back, what was the thought process behind that decision, and how is life in Korea compared to being in America for the majority of your life?
So it was obviously a pretty wild change. The first initial move that I had done was going from Jersey to Los Angeles, and that already kind of sucked. I lived with my father the entire time that I was back in the States. I never moved out and had my own place or anything like that when I was staying in New Jersey. So I think when I was up until I was 22, I had lived at home. So that was the first time that I left the nest. So I went to Los Angeles, and then fast forward, 8 or 9 months, I get an offer to go to Korea. And at that point it was basically a no-brainer, choice for me to come out here, because I was frustrated with my job. I really loved working for Team Liquid and doing video content and whatnot, but I was over doing editing and whatnot, pulling 40 straight hours doing editing, which was by, my own choice. It's not like TL sat there with a whip and said, you will edit for 40 hours. It was, obviously not like that, but that's just how I work best when it comes down to editing or doing anything. When it came to schooling, I was very much like a crunch time kind of guy, wait until the day before it's due and then go in and just
bang it out,
machine it out until it's done. So I was getting burned out on that. So when Monty contacted me and asked me if I'd be interested in coming out to Korea to work for OGN, I immediately responded with well, yes, of course I'm interested in that. Then it became, the challenging part of it was basically talking to my dad and saying, hey, I'm not going to be 5 hours away anymore. Double that and add a little bit on top. That's where I'm at. So yeah, he picked me up from the airport. I was going back to New Jersey to celebrate Christmas with him and, my friends and whatnot. And on the ride home, I told him, hey, so I got a new job offer. And he assumed this was just going to be, moving company, still being based in LA or maybe going up to San Francisco or something. And I was like, it's in Korea. And he's just like, Korea? What? All the way around the world? And I was like, yeah, I really need to take this job. And I mean, one of the best things about my dad was he said, this is what you want, right? And I said, yes. And he said, well, then I back you 100%. It'll suck to know that you're that far away, but it's not like I can't get on a flight. I have a passport. I'm an adult. I can, afford to pay for a flight and come visit you. So yeah, do it. And I did.
It's really comforting to hear any stories of parents supporting someone in esports dream. I mean, I'm not sure how your parents were when you were little, but they told me like video games are a waste of time and I need to get like a real job and all that stuff. And
there's a good amount of that.
Yeah. I find it real great that we're in a generation where these things are becoming more commonplace. I think my mom would lose it if I had to travel halfway around the world and not see her as often. I'm only like an hour away from her, but I mean, that must have been really hard for you to just leave home like that.
It was a pretty emotional departure when he dropped me off. Cause like I didn't go straight from New Jersey over to Korea. I did have to go back to Los Angeles while I was waiting for my visa to process. Cause I was still working for Team Liquid. I still had work to do. So I went back and continued all of those things. But it was that moment of, I'm going to Los Angeles, but the next time that I see you, it'll be me coming back from Korea or you coming to Korea, which ended up being, I think, the latter case. It was him coming to visit. So it was an emotional departure. I hugged him for a while. I cried. The Cure was wrong. Boys do cry. But yeah, I mean, it was still a good moment, I think, because if my dad were to write a memoir, that would probably be the moment where he said, and then my son became a man, like that kind of thing. So it was still very heartfelt. And obviously every time I get to see my dad, it's always a wonderful occasion.
Hell yeah. I mean, that's so, I didn't expect to have people cutting onions in the corner here. I will not cry on broadcast. Okay. This is professional production. Follow along and cheer on the Fusion and watch every match on YouTube right on your TV. Just say Overwatch League into your Xfinity voice remote. Now that you're settled in Korea, you recently got married. You're like settling down.
Coming up on a year.
Oh, congratulations. So tell us what is life like in Korea? Is it super different from America? I mean, I imagine it's somewhat different, but I've only heard things. One of these days I want to get out of Korea. But you're living the dream. Tell us what it's like. It's
very different from living in America. I mean, in just about every regard. Baseline, you're moving to a country where you don't speak the native tongue. I still don't. I'm taking lessons. I'm getting better at it. But, upholding a conversation is still incredibly difficult for me, even though I've been here for 5 years. That's mostly to do with my laziness. But, from the get-go, you come out here, you have very little understanding of the language, navigating, finding your way around Seoul and whatnot. I was very lucky to have as generous of a group as I did coming out here in Papa Smithy, Susie Kim, Monte Cristo, Doa, all the original OGN crew, because they really took care of me. They gave me places to stay initially. I stayed with Papa. Susie loaned me like $5,000 so I could do things like get a phone and do all of this other stuff, survive, because I had no money. I was paying student loans and credit card bills when I got out to Korea. So I definitely had an easier time of it because of them. So I'm eternally grateful for their gratitude, or eternally grateful for their generosity, I guess is what I mean to say. But it's just wild. Everybody's nice. If you don't understand the language, you don't understand what they're saying, people are usually just like, oh, I get it. Like, you're a foreigner, it's fine. They don't really get aggravated with you because you can't understand what they're saying. The number of times that I've had taxi drivers call me, because I'll call a taxi to pick me up, and there's a pin on the map, and sometimes they'll call and be like, hey, where exactly are you? And I'll just say oh, sorry, I don't speak Korean. I can say that in Korean basically, or I'll just say oh, sorry, I'm American in Korean, and then just go, okay, I'll be right there.
I got you.
And I was like, that's amazing. I'm not getting chewed out by this driver. So yeah, everybody's just nice. The food is delicious. The living cost out here is significantly lower than any major city in the States. And Seoul is a city that has half the population of the entire country within it.
Right.
Like if you want to buy a place here, it does become quite expensive. But if you're just renting, it's so affordable. So especially going from Santa Monica to here,
Oh, yes.
it's a night and day shift. Because I was looking at getting an apartment in Santa Monica, and I was just like, I am not paid anywhere near enough for this. So yeah, it's a wild transition. It took a little while to get used to. Obviously, there was a short little stint of being homesick, but I think I fell into it really quickly, and I think that most people who come out here do. It's such a welcoming country. It's just a pleasant place to live. So I feel like, you know, you miss home for a little bit, but Seoul, you know, I would say within like a few months really kind of just started feeling like more of a home. Like the only thing that was lacking was my friends from back in Jersey and my dad. So it's like, you know, if I had them here, it would just be totally, you know, perfect. Like I never have to leave.
Yeah.
And even, you know, without them being here, I still feel like I never have to leave. Like this is my home at this point.
That's great. Do you think that your dad would settle in Korea pretty easily if he like were to live there hypothetically?
I don't think he would ever be capable of learning more than like 3 phrases in Korean. Like he can barely say thank you and hello when he came out here to visit. But I was so worried the first time that he came to visit because he flew in, we went out, we had some drinks, we got dinner, whatever. We went back to my apartment and then went to bed. I wake up at like 8 a.m. My dad's not in the apartment. And I look outside. I look outside because my dad's a smoker. I look outside and he's not on the porch. He's not smoking. He's not downstairs, like in the street or whatever. And I run out into the street in my pajamas. I'm just like, where is my father? Like, he doesn't have cell service. He's dependent on Wi-Fi and he barely understands how that functions. And I ran up and down the street for a little bit and I was just like, I cannot find him. Like, what do I do? So I just kind of resigned myself to going back home and waiting for, like, I said, I'll give it an hour and then I'm calling the police and telling them, you need to find this older white male who's got a long hair and a ponytail, and bring him to this address. But he ended up coming back after like 45 minutes. I was like, Dad, like, you have to be worried. Where did you go? Yeah, like, it was like such a reversal of the relationship where I'm like the one who's like scolding him for running off. And he just went like, I went and got some coffee.
Oh my God.
He just wandered down the street until he found a cafe that he liked. And then he proceeded to go to that cafe every single day and then talk in broken English and Korean to the owner. And he would just go, he would have a black coffee and he would have a shot of espresso. And he did that every single day that he was staying with me. He acclimated so quickly. It was insane.
If that is not the best way to really submerge yourself into the culture, that's nuts. That's great.
He called me the one time at, I sleep in. So he called me the one time at like 11 a.m. And he's like, get your ass out of bed. I'm like, why? What's going on? He's like, I ordered too much barbecue. I need you to come help me finish. So he wandered around and he got hungry. So he just went into some KBBQ restaurant and then ordered a bunch of stuff. And then just was sitting there and eating it by himself. And then just like, come help me finish it. I was like, all right. So I walked over and we finished the meal together and we went about our day.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really need to get over there one of these days.
Everybody should. It's I'd say like top of your list for vacationing.
Is your current water heater giving you the cold shoulder? Upgrade to a reliable Bradford White water heater for all the hot water that your family needs. Visit bradfordwhite.com to find a professional installer near you. I wanted to circle back and ask you about the health of the Overwatch League. I know that they had to pivot. Every league seems to have to pivot over the last year, and it seems that there's light at the end of the tunnel. How do you feel about the league as a whole? And do you feel like they're going in a good direction in terms of competition, fan base, all that stuff? Because, there are people who are itching to get back to homestands and live events and stuff. Yeah. And, they were saying, we're going to have some sort of hybrid for the future. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you want it to share?
I want homestands. Like, I think that I excel the most in an audience setting, like the last live event. I mean, I still cast on LAN in Korea for Valorant, but there's no audience there.
Right.
So the last time that I really cast for an audience was in Houston for that homestand, which was like the last one that we had done before we had to shut everything down. And before that, obviously, I was in Philly, which was great. And I'm wearing the jacket.
Yes.
But like I think that I excel around a live audience. So like for me in particular, I'm like, I really just want to be in the middle of a crowd yelling. You know, even if it's a Korean crowd and they're not hearing my audio, I don't care about that. I just like the energy, and I feed off the energy of the crowd in a very big way. So obviously I want that to come back, but I fully understand why things are going to be more spaced out. COVID is still very much a thing. People are, you know, need to get vaccinated. So having these mass events is not going to be the most responsible thing to do in America, or really anywhere in the world at this point. There are good, you know, certain areas that have it under control, but we can't go there, like New Zealand. But but you know, I get why we can't, and that's a bit of a bummer. But I think that overall the league is still doing very well. I think that this year we have a lot more freedom when it comes down to the content being produced. It's a lot more tongue-in-cheek, it's less serious, there's a lot of silliness going on, and I think that resonates really well with our audience. Having the new implementations that YouTube has made for rewards and clips and whatnot is a huge improvement over you know, last year, where we were lacking all of those features, things that, you know, people really rely on when it comes down to watching things on Twitch. So getting those features kind of pumped over, it's been really huge to, you know, I like seeing just clips posted on, like, you know, competitive Overwatch again. People just being like, oh my God, look at this play, rather than being like, oh man, Fleta made this insane play. Go to 1 hour, 59 minutes and 36 seconds in the VOD and then watch it. So being able to just directly link for those moments, I think is a really big improvement. I think it's kind of reinstilling a lot of love and faith in the esport. Viewership's been going up, at least, you know, from what I can tell. Obviously I don't have the numbers, but I think from my eyes, I think it's doing pretty well. And it's just really good to see that, you know, everybody is kind of coming back into this, being like, yeah, this is a wild season. We're getting a lot of upset results. The quality is great. Everything, you know, now it's in 4K. It just seems like across the board, there's been a lot of upgrades, despite the fact that everybody is still working from home.
This podcast is brought to you by Rothman Orthopedics, the official team physicians for the Philadelphia Fusion. Rothman Orthopedics is here to help you put pain behind you and be what you were. For more information or to make an appointment, visit rothmanortho.com. I can't even imagine how that reunion of live talent will be. You know, you've working with these people in person and then remote. You've got new people joining, new people from contenders, and I can't imagine how great that reunion will be when the time comes.
To forget. Is what I will say.
Might not make it to work the next morning just because of all the partying and just festivities and stuff.
I miss everybody dearly. Like the last people that I got to see were Jaws, Bren. I didn't get to see Sideshow or any of those guys while I was back in LA, because I had to go back to LA to get my marriage visa in August, and that's the last time that I've seen anybody from the Overwatch League. So yeah, it's been a really long time. I miss all of them. It was such a stark change going from living in Los Angeles in 2019, seeing everybody, you know, basically every night, every other night, go out to the bars, get dinner together, etc. To then being like, okay, yeah, like I'll see you in Houston because we're both going to those events, and then like I'll catch you guys in Washington, yada yada yada. To then just being like everyone's locked indoors and I will maybe never see you again. So I'm really looking forward to it. I know that is going to be an absolute rager of a night when we all get back.
We are all looking forward to it, especially from a spectator point of view. It's just, I miss live events, and I know that you guys are going to kill it. And I know that you're going to continue to kill it, not just in Overwatch League, but Valorant, whatever esport happens to tickle your fancy as the years goes on. I feel like you haven't even hit your prime yet. You're like still climbing. So we wish you nothing but the best. And, you know, I'm just glad that you're out there doing your best. So, you know,
thanks, man.
One friend to another, just keep killing it, man. You're an inspiration. And thank you for coming to talk to me. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I left the troll comment on the YouTube post, but I was happy to see that you were doing the show, and you're still repping like the Philly pride and all that stuff, dude. Yeah. Like, Yeah, it's good to catch up.
Yeah, we're trying out here. For anybody who didn't recognize that reference, on a previous episode, there was a comment. I always leave comments about who we should talk to on future episodes, and I saw Achilios post, and I didn't know whether that was his actual YouTube account or someone who just wanted to impersonate him. So I sent him a DM, and he was like, "If I don't know if you're trolling or not." It's like, "Oh, it's kind of trolling, but like, yeah, let's make this happen." And so here we are. So I'm just glad that we're still, you've grown so much from just being at this random con party to being one of the premier talents in esports. Esports is crazy, man, and I just can't wait to see where it takes you. So thank you very much for coming on, and we hope to have you back on a future episode, man.
Anytime, dude. Literally. I mean, I've got nothing else to do right now, especially I got a lull in the work. When I have you back on tomorrow, sure, let's just do it. But anything to get back in with the Philly boys, I'm always down for that.
Hell yeah. All right. We will see you next time. Guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode of The Feed. We really appreciate you coming back week after week. Let us know in the comments who you'd like us to talk to for the next episode. For everybody here at The Feed, my name is Akinola Verissimo. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll see you next time.